The year was 2145, and Earth had long become one of the central hubs of galactic exploration. Humanity, driven by technological advancements, had begun exploring space, establishing colonies on some planets, and forging relationships with other species in the galaxy. However, one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, the Zylox, had only recently developed an interest in this blue planet, Earth, a planet they had never made contact with before. The Zylox were a cold, emotionless, and purely logic-driven species. Technologically, they were far ahead of others in the galaxy, particularly in biotechnology, which they had mastered beyond comparison. They believed themselves to be physically and intellectually superior, products of evolutionary perfection. Their goal was to colonize Earth as part of their grand galactic empire. The natural resources found on Earth could fuel the weaponry and energy systems needed for their ongoing galactic wars. Commander Garrick, leader of the Zylox fleet, hovered in a massive warship, closely observing the planet from its orbit. This seemingly simple world of blues and greens posed no real threat to the Zylox empire. Humans were a primitive, warlike species, but their technology was nowhere near advanced enough to compare with Zylox capabilities. Garrick thought conquering the planet would be an easy victory. "This planet holds strategic importance for the Empire," Garrick announced to his crew. "We will begin the colonization process immediately. Earth's natural resources are abundant. Our landing team will establish the first defensive lines and secure the area." Science Officer Callan had gathered information about the planet's biology and had offered some warnings to Garrick. "Commander, this planet's ecosystem is incredibly complex. Especially in the tropical regions, the biological diversity might be richer than we anticipated. There's high humidity and many organic particles in the atmosphere," he reported. But Garrick didn't take these warnings seriously. Zylox technology could handle any biological threat or environmental challenge with ease. "Our first exploration team will land directly in the tropical regions," he ordered. "If there is any biological threat, our technology can easily overcome it." On Garrick's command, the first landing team was sent to one of the planet's hot, humid regions. The team represented the pinnacle of Zylox advancement. Equipped with advanced armor technology, atmospheric filtration systems, and biological shields, they believed they were fully prepared to operate in Earth's harsh conditions. Yet, there was something they had failed to notice: the persistent buzzing sound in the air. At first, the Zylox soldiers paid little attention to the source of the sound. They knew little about Earth's native life and assumed the strange noises were caused by some harmless local insects. Some soldiers even began to think that this primitive planet had been overly hyped. But things changed as midnight approached, and unease began to spread throughout the camp. The first signs of trouble came from Lowell, who suddenly felt an itch inside his helmet. Soon, other soldiers began experiencing the same discomfort. This wasn't just a mild allergic reaction affecting one or two people. Chaos was quickly spreading through the ranks. When the soldiers removed their helmets, their faces, arms, and legs were swollen, red, and covered in bites. The symptoms intensified rapidly as the officers tried to regain control. One thing was clear: this seemingly simple planet posed a serious threat to Zylox biology. One officer soon discovered the source of the attacks. Callan, using a microscopic analysis, identified the hostile creatures: mosquitoes, an ordinary insect native to Earth. However, for the Zylox, these tiny creatures were not a simple nuisance. They were a potential disaster. "Commander Garrick, these mosquitoes seem to be reacting chemically with our body fluids. Our immune systems are too slow to respond to their bites," Callan explained. Garrick found it hard to believe that such tiny creatures could cause this level of harm. Zylox technology was among the most advanced in the galaxy. How could a mere insect leave them so helpless? But the facts were undeniable. The mosquito population on Earth was rapidly increasing and specifically targeting the Zylox. The colonization effort had come to a standstill at the very first step. The Zylox tried to use biological filters to fend off the tiny creatures, but no matter what they did, they couldn't completely escape the mosquitoes. Each bite brought more swelling, itching, and unbearable discomfort. Commander Garrick was forced to come up with a strategy to deal with even this small, humbling enemy. The Zylox, who prided themselves as one of the most intelligent and powerful species in the galaxy, now faced a biological challenge they had never expected. Earth was proving to be far more formidable than they had anticipated. The chaos of the first night had shaken their pride and their confidence in their technology. Commander Garrick knew he had to regain control of the situation quickly. The planet's resources were of strategic importance to them, but this humiliating defeat was putting their plans at risk. By morning, the camp was in a dire state. Mosquitoes had pierced even the Zylox soldiers' biotechnological armor, leaving their bodies covered in hundreds of bites. Officer Lowell reported to Garrick, "This planet will kill us, Commander. The mosquitoes are small, but their numbers and effects could be deadly." Commander Garrick understood the severity of the situation. The Zylox were advanced in biotechnology, but they had biological vulnerabilities. While they were resistant to direct physical attacks, they were struggling to cope with the microorganisms carried by the mosquitoes. He quickly called for a meeting. During the meeting, Science Officer Callan made suggestions. Earth's ecosystem is far more complex than we anticipated. Our greatest threat right now is these tiny insects. We can't handle them with traditional methods. We need to either develop rapid immunity to these mosquitoes or cleanse these areas completely. Our technology could be adapted to target the mosquitoes. Garrick shook his head. Technology might be a solution, but that will take time. We can't let these insects weaken us until then. We need a faster solution. Zylox do not fall to such small threats on any planet. At that moment, Harlow, one of the soldiers who had suffered the most from the mosquito attacks, stepped forward, scratching at the swelling on his face. "Commander, our current protection systems aren't working. What we need is some sort of shield or protective field. We could set up the energy barriers we use around our cities here. If these bugs stay outside, they can't get to us." Garrick looked thoughtfully at Harlow. This could be a temporary solution, but the constant attacks from the mosquitoes were also rapidly destroying his soldiers' morale. On the battlefield, Zylox always operated with order and discipline, but now their greatest enemy was chaos itself. The random, unpredictable assaults of tiny mosquitoes. Garrick gave the order to his team. "Let's try Harlow's suggestion. Set up the energy barriers immediately. We have to hold our defensive line until we find a way to deal with these mosquitoes. Callan, continue your biological research. Until we figure out the genetic structure of these insects, we won't be able to face the other threats of this planet." The landing teams quickly began setting up energy barriers around the camp. Normally, these barriers provided a strong defense against external threats, but this was the first time the Zylox were using them against insects. For a brief period, they seemed to have some relief. The buzzing of the mosquitoes echoed outside the camp, but they couldn't penetrate the barrier. The soldiers took a moment to breathe, feeling temporarily safe. But Callan knew that the problem wouldn't be solved so easily. The planet's biological diversity could challenge them in many other ways. As he continued to study the genetic structure of the mosquitoes, he discovered something unusual in their DNA. These creatures didn't follow a typical biological cycle. They had a high capacity for adaptation, and with each bite, they were quickly responding to the Zylox immune system, becoming more potent. "Commander, we're facing a bigger issue," Callan said. "These mosquitoes can adapt rapidly to our genetic structure. Even with energy barriers, we may not be able to keep them at bay for long. If we don't find a solution soon, we won't be able to stay on Earth for an extended period. Without understanding what lies deeper in this planet's ecosystem, these bugs could wipe us out." Garrick fell silent after hearing Callan's report. The struggle with the mosquitoes had already derailed their invasion plans in its early stages. Yet, the Zylox had always found strategic solutions even in the most difficult situations. These tiny creatures couldn't possibly be strong enough to challenge the greatest civilization in the galaxy. But there was something he didn't know. Earth's ecosystem was far more complex and powerful than Zylox technology could predict. The Zylox had launched a war against the planet's microworld, but the victor of this battle might be the smallest enemy of all. Despite the installation of the energy barriers, as night fell, the buzzing of mosquitoes once again echoed around the camp. The Zylox soldiers, shielded behind the barrier, felt a fleeting sense of safety. Meanwhile, Garrick stood silently, watching the planet, pondering how such a small enemy could pose such a strategic threat. Humans had learned to deal with these simple creatures, but for the Zylox, this was a new war. And this war would be won not just with technology, but by understanding the planet's mysteries. Garrick's eyes turned toward the dark sky. Tomorrow they would face the other threats of Earth. But first, they had to conquer these tiny creatures. The Zylox weren't about to let victory slip away to a mere insect. Night crept slowly over Earth, enveloping it in pitch-black darkness, while the incessant buzzing of mosquitoes echoed around the camp. The Zylox soldiers, resting behind their energy barriers in a relatively secure area, were still filled with a deep unease. The mosquitoes were wearing them down, both physically and mentally. For the Zylox, a proud warrior race that had fought the most dangerous civilizations in the galaxy, being brought to their knees by such a small enemy was unacceptable. Commander Garrick decided to take action at the break of dawn. The mosquitoes were merely a surface-level threat of this planet. They had no idea what other dangers lay deeper within Earth's grasp. If they couldn't handle these small creatures, they would never stand a chance against the planet's greater and more lethal dangers. Today was a day of reckoning. The camp science officer, Callan, had been working tirelessly through the night, studying the mosquitoes' genetic structure. While the soldiers tried to rest, Callan and his team conducted biological analyses, searching for any weaknesses in these creatures. The mosquitoes' ability to evolve rapidly was challenging even Zylox technology. By the time Callan entered Garrick's tent, his eyes were dark with exhaustion, but his determination was unwavering. "Commander, we're not entirely defenseless against the mosquitoes," Callan said, handing Garrick his data tablet. "We've studied their genetic makeup and found a weakness. These creatures are highly resilient in Earth's atmosphere, but they become vulnerable when exposed to certain biological substances. Specifically, a few compounds from Earth's plants can paralyze their neurological systems. We can use these substances to create a defense." Garrick carefully examined the report Callan presented. "How long will it take to get these substances?" he asked. Time was running out. With each passing moment, the morale and physical resilience of the Zylox soldiers were deteriorating. "The plants are close by, just outside the camp," Callan explained. "In fact, they're in the nearby forest. But collecting them will be risky. The forest seems to be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. If we send a team in, they could be swarmed." Garrick narrowed his eyes as he looked toward the forest. "We don't have a choice," he said. "We'll take the risk. Gather the bravest soldiers. We need those plants immediately." Later in the day, a select team, led by Commander Garrick, set out toward the forest. The energy barriers had protected them for a while, but outside the camp, they entered a different world. As the team hurriedly gathered the plants, the number of mosquitoes swelled suddenly. The buzzing surrounded them, an oppressive sound that filled the air. Lowell, one of the soldiers, poured the prepared mixture into the campfire, and suddenly, a loud explosion echoed across the area. The buzzing of the mosquitoes abruptly ceased. The compounds in the mixture had paralyzed the mosquitoes' sensitive nervous systems, rendering them harmless. Silence fell over the camp. The attack had stopped just as quickly as it had begun. Catching his breath, Garrick surveyed the situation. "Did we succeed?" he asked Callan. Callan nodded, looking at the mosquitoes that had fallen to the ground, motionless. "Yes, Commander." The Zylox team, carrying the plants and the formula, returned to the camp. They had managed to break the mosquitoes' grip on them, but they knew that uncovering Earth's mysteries would take much more effort. If such a small threat had caused them so much trouble, what would they do when confronted with the planet's bigger secrets? As Commander Garrick reached the edge of the camp, he took a deep breath. "We underestimated the enemies of this planet. Next time, we must be more careful. We need to be prepared, both biologically and strategically." The Zylox were ready to reshape Earth. But this war would be more than just a technological battle. It would be a test against Earth's biological strength. The mosquitoes were only the beginning. As the Zylox continued to unravel the planet's secrets, new and deadlier threats awaited them at every turn. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.